Lunch Company, which was previously, I can't remember what it was before that.
It's on this side?
No, it's on the other side. It's
so
the
it's
south
between
side.
Very Best and the New York store.
Yeah.
Little skinny.
Oh, that was Chris and Sam's place.
Yes, that was Milkman Lunch Company.
Right, Milkman, right.
Yep.
That's right. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
They're good people. I like them a lot.
Yeah, so...
We're live.
Yeah, and their stuff is delicious. Just when I lost my first COVID-15, ready to pack on the second COVID-15. All right.
So we're live. We've
All
got
right.
a couple of people watching.
All right, hold on. I got to get it. Why didn't
All
it
right.
come up?
You try to get on the show. I'm just going to
there it
start
is.
flapping my gums.
There it is. All right.
We got Joe
Flap away.
Ceresi
Look how nice.
with us today, state representative from the 146th district, which
That logo
basically
looks very
covers
nice, Matt.
the eastern side of Pottstown.
Yes, Pottstown is broken up. There's
I
two
think
of us
we would
here.
say it's gerrymandered.
Well, I would say gerrymandered also. Myself and Representative Hennessy cover Pottstown.
Right.
And way the other way into the Pottsgroves, which cuts in, you'll have Marcy Topol, Representative Topol, who has that part.
Okay.
Right,
So
of the groves.
it's poorly gerrymandered. It should be one representative for the whole area.
Now, what are the other townships? What are the other areas?
So I
that are
cover Trapp,
Yep.
Perky Elman, Royers Ford, Limerick, and Lower Pottsgrove.
Okay.
And then the part of Pottstown.
Roughly half of Pottstown.
Right.
Now, where are you from originally?
Where I grew up?
Yeah.
I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
What? How did I not know that? I should have
Long
heard
Island.
Hear it
it.
from my accent.
I should have heard it a little bit. Where in Long Island?
I came from a small town called East Northport in Suffolk County.
Yeah,
on the
I
north
know where
shore of Long
Northport
Island.
is. Yeah.
Huntington Township.
I lived in Huntington for a year and a half.
Oh, yeah, where were you?
Yes, I was on Adelaide Street. I don't remember
Right
what
downtown?
part of. No. It was a long time ago, Joe.
It's funny because
30
I was
years
thinking,
ago.
I was
But
thinking about this the other day. I have been here the longest out of anywhere I've ever lived. I left New York when I was 17 to go to college.
right.
And I've been in Pennsylvania now. I started working here in 1999, and then we bought our home in 2001.
Yeah, so I was just having the same conversation with Levi that I've been here since 1997, so that's 23 years, right, which is the longest that I've lived any place
Right.
continually, right here. And so it doesn't make me OG. I'm not OG like Matt is. I wasn't born and raised here, but like, am I legit because I've been here for 23 years and I chose and I
think
picked
after
it,
you're
right?
here a certain period of time, you're more than legit.
Yeah.
And you've given back to the community so much that you are the community.
Right.
Thank you.
And she
hope-
married an OG Pottstonian.
Right.
And she gave birth to an OG
Yes.
Pottstonian.
Right.
So I think by
I
proxy
married
alone.
into like a really old Pottstown family. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
the Wolves have been here for a long time. So,
And
yeah.
our son was 2 when we moved here. He went and graduated Springford School District and now is at Temple University. So we're entrenched
Yes,
in the
Right.
community.
exactly.
And, he'll be working in the greater Philadelphia area. So hopefully we'll have grandchildren someday.
How old's your son?
He's 21. He'll be 22 next month.
All right,
okay.
so grandchildren like
Oh, no,
like
not anytime
like years
soon.
down the road.
Yeah,
Years
yeah.
down the road. Yeah.
I told him that. I said, no,
I say that to Harrison all the time.
Right.
No grandbabies. Thank you. No grandbabies. Not yet.
get a job, a house, and be married.
Yes.
And then you could
Yeah.
have your grandkids.
That's the
Do what you wanna
That's
do.
the preferred timing.
I
But,
want to be a grandparent in the worst way.
right.
Just
when
not
the,
right
when
now.
The
No,
time
not
is right,
today.
when the time is right for everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
My son goes to Temple as well. He's a freshman. My son
okay.
Andrew is 18.
What's his major?
Political science and American history.
Oh,
Wants to become a politician.
there you go. That's great.
Oh, so what advice would you have for young
Well,
Master
listen,
Green?
I think it's a noble opportunity for someone who really wants to serve for the right reasons.
Right.
It is a hard position because you're always in the public eye and you're not going to please everyone. And that's the hardest part, is that you want people to be happy with every decision, but they can't be happy with every decision.
Right.
Because there's always a give and a take.
Right.
From when I was young, I had a desire to work for the public in some manner. And even as a performer, for all the years I performed and working in the arts, you still were in the public eye.
Sure.
But I think it's great that he wants to be a politician. My son right now doesn't want to have anything to do with politics in
Right.
that way.
Right.
He doesn't want to run for office. He likes to help, but not
Not
in the
to
public eye.
Not right
not
out
to be
in
the
the
big
front.
Yeah.
Now, you started on the Springford School District, is that
I
correct?
did. So prior to coming to Pennsylvania, I was involved when we lived in South Florida. I was the chair of the Council for the Arts for a city called Pembroke Pines. Now, Pembroke Pines has become one of the fastest growing cities in Broward County and in South Florida. And when we moved here, I responded to an ad in the newspaper saying we're looking for candidates to run either for school board or township in Limerick. And Danny was young, and I thought, well, why don't I try school board? We didn't know a lot of people that first election cycle, and I walked all of Royersford, part of Limerick, and Spring City at the time was part of my area, and knocked on every door, not knowing that not everybody votes. And then won that election in 2003.
Okay.
And then from there, I served 2003 to 7. I was off for 2 years, and I came back 2009, sorry, 2010. He graduated in 17. I finished out my term, and I was done.
Okay.
Now you talk about a thankless job. Being on school board is really,
You know,
it's a
people
volunteer.
say
It's a volunteer position.
it is, and you
it's
take a lot of heat. And right now,
yeah.
they're taking the school boards are taking a lot of heat with all this COVID stuff.
There's a no-win situation.
But it's not. You know, people would always say to me, "It's thankless." I never felt like it was thankless. I loved every minute of it. We did make changes that were significant in Springford that changed people's lives for the positive.
Okay.
We moved the district from 120th to 9th. We were committed to public
Wow.
education. We improved in our music programs, our academics, our athletic. People were starting to see that Springford was becoming a district of distinction. And it was a lot of work. But I applaud anyone who's serving because, like you said, again, you do this group gets angry. You do this group gets angry.
Right.
And you just have to work through it until you get to a place where people begin to trust your decision and why you made it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy for people to sit back and armchair quarterback the decisions, especially now. I mean, you said you finished your run on school board in 2010?
2017, I finished.
Oh, 2017. Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. But, so back when you started, social media wasn't what it is now. And so now it's just a constant grilling by the public.
There's always something. And, I went out with being able to be the board president, signing the diplomas that year, which was Danny's diploma,
Yes.
and giving the commencement speech.
Yes.
And it was a great honor to be able to do that for the community. I knew all those kids. So when I got up to speak, I spoke about a class of kids who I
Right.
knew them.
You knew.
Yeah.
And it was emotional.
Sure.
One of the board members goes, "Yeah, I had the under and over for you crying like 3 minutes." I ended up singing, which I wasn't planning, but I ended up singing.
It was either sing or
You
cry.
just fell
Yeah,
back
right.
Yeah.
to what you knew.
Right, I figured it's either I sing or I cry, so one
Yeah.
way or the other, I'm going to have to get through this. My son's like, "I can't believe you was singing."
Just-
I'm like, "Well,
Muscle memory kicked in.
bam!"
Yeah. So what was your career before you were in politics? What did you do?
So I was at a college. I went to a company called Encore Magazine, and Encore was the theater program. It was the competitor of Playbill magazine around the nation.
Okay.
But they were owned by a company called Pace Theatrical Group, which now has become Live Nation. So I started by going literally with a phone book to every business on Miami Beach to get them to advertise in the Broadway shows that were coming. And then they sold it off to Playbill. So I continued on with Playbill. I sold all of South Florida, Central Florida, and New Orleans. And then an opportunity arose to come to Philadelphia to sell Playbill for the Philadelphia area. And while I was here, they built the Kimmel Center.
Okay.
And Playbill at the time wasn't taking the Kimmel Center as a client. So the Kimmel Center had no program book. So someone came to me and said, "Would you be interested in starting to do this at the Kimmel?" And I said, "Well, I did always want to be at a performing arts center." So I said, "Okay." I ended up being there 17 years,
Wow.
which I loved. I loved the center. It was a great place. You didn't realize where you worked until you went into the hall for a performance, or you went into the hall, in the Academy of Music, and you sat down and you went, "Oh, I
Wow.
really work here."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because
And-
you're in the business,
Right.
doing what you do, and then when you get to take a step back and sit down and see a performance, say, "Oh, well, I'm helping to make this
or I
happen."
would take you on a tour, and
Right.
I'd bring you on the stage when the hall was empty, and you go, "Wow."
Yeah.
And you'd see your face light up. But when we have a Broadway show and the set's on stage, the show would finish, and we would walk the stage like during Phantom,
Yeah.
I'd bring everybody on the stage who were clients or friends, and they would light up.
And then that's when it hit homes for you, right?
Because you're looking out into it. It's an empty house, but you're looking at a 3,000 seat venue and going, it is beautiful.
Right.
We had...
And it's probably pretty overwhelming to look out at an empty house and imagine what it's like
full,
to be full.
Because playing the 250 people here at Steel River is a little bit different than playing the 3,000 at the Academy of Music.
Right.
Yeah. So listen, we've had some more people coming on, so I just want to reiterate, and I also want to go through a couple of housekeeping items for the interview here with Joe Ciresi, the state representative for the 146th district that we said covers about half of Pottstown. We are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. You can find the show on both platforms. Like, share, subscribe. We need people to share the show out on their Facebook pages, their groups, etc.
Yep.
That'll help us spread Joe's message here today. It'll also help spread Porchcast message. And we were trying to be part of the voice for Pottstown. We do monitor the comments, so make your comments. If you have a question for Joe or a topic that you would like us to ask about or you want to hear him talk about, let us know. Put it in the comments. We're monitoring those.
I can
and
look
we'll
at those
work
comments
them
too
into the conversation.
There you go.
On
There
YouTube.
you go.
I will look at that. Okay, cool.
So
I've not seen that.
we talked about your time on the school board, and I think that's a good segue into some of the things that are very important here in the borough of Pottstown, and something that we talk about on a regular basis on Porchcast is the fair funding, right?
Yes.
You know that's a huge issue here in Pottstown, and I'm going to give you some credit. I'll blow the horn for you, so to speak. I know that you're one of the people. You're one of the state representatives, one of the elected officials that has gone with the people from Harrisburg to march at the Capitol to demand fair funding. So I want to hear what you have to say on that issue, and I think a lot of people that are watching want to hear what you have to say about fair funding or your participation in the fight to really achieve fair funding.
So, as we know, Pottstown is the 5th most underfunded school district in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's five.
Yeah,
Number
just-
five.
just-
500 districts.
Let's just let that soak in for a
Right.
minute. Number 5 out of
500.
500.
For underfunding.
we're under, yeah.
$14 million roughly a year, give or take. It varies. As we look at this inequity and we say to ourselves, how would we fix this? What would $14 million a year look like to the Pottstown community?
Mm-hmm.
Per household, we are looking at a dramatic drop in taxes and giving our children every opportunity that they need to have to be competitive here in the borough. When you look at the fair funding formula, you say to yourself, well, this is a no-brainer. And this issue is not Democrat or Republican. This issue is...
It shouldn't
across the
be.
board. Well, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't
but
be.
Right.
It's both sides.
Right.
Because we have districts that are overfunded by hundreds of thousands of dollars into millions of dollars.
Right.
Okay.
So by equaling out this formula, you're going to take money away from those districts and you're going to give it to this district.
You're just going to evenly distribute it.
You're going to evenly
according
distribute it. But if your district has been overfunded all these years,
Yeah, you
you don't want that.
don't want to give it
happen.
up.
Sure.
So what we're battling is how do we find the balance to sustain as much as we can those districts that have been overfunded because of what it is, but to fund these districts that have been heavily underfunded.
Right.
And we're looking for solutions. One of the solutions, and it's not popular all over the place because there are parents who have, I'm going to go to the charter school side, is to set a different formula for the charter schools and balance that out. So then we
Okay.
can push money back to the districts that are underfunded.
Okay.
Another one is in the special ed formula, to look at another way to balance out the special ed formula. You know, we have an issue across the Commonwealth with property taxes and seniors.
Right.
I'm a hard believer, and I've sponsored multiple bills, that the senior taxes should be frozen at a certain age and income level. That if today you're paying $3,000 and you hit 62 and you're at I don't know what income level it would be. Let's say 35,000,
Right.
and that's where you are.
Mhm.
That's where we're freezing that taxes
Okay.
in perpetuity.
Gotcha.
Look, I have one child.
Right.
People have 4 and 5 kids that are going through the same system, paying the same thing I am. So when people say, "Well, it's not fair," it's not fair
It's not.
anywhere.
Right.
But this is the way that it's set up.
Well, right, that's the way it works.
And when we look at the way we need to fund education, there's House Bill 76, which is to get rid of all property tax, which is a wonderful idea on paper. But what happens with House Bill 76, it has to be funded by personal income tax and sales tax. So when the economy tanks, school districts will have no idea how much money they have to be able to fund public education. And it's not living within your means. It's not knowing where you're going.
Where the next dollar is coming
Right.
from,
Right.
right?
And people want to live in places where there's a strong school district.
Sure.
Right.
Because there's a commitment to community.
Right.
So I've been part of the fight as a freshman legislator to push the legislators to say, look, you took this fair funding formula. You agreed that we should have it.
Right.
But then you did nothing with it.
Right.
Right.
So I'm going to agree to paint the house. I'm going to buy the paint.
Right.
But I'm never going to
I'm not
buy
going
it.
to put it on.
Right.
It's a waste.
It's a waste. It's a
Right.
complete waste of time
Everybody
and
agrees
energy.
that the house needs to be repainted.
Everybody agrees.
We have the means to do it.
We can do it, but we're not going
Let's
to.
paint that
because
house.
You know what? If I paint that house, then I may have to do some more improvement that I don't want. Then I have to take away from over here. That's what it is. It's like, well, then my district may lose money. And how am I going to go back to my constituents and say, well, we took $1 million out of our district to give to Pottstown?
Right.
And I looked and I said, but it's okay for my district to be underfunded.
Right, and really it's the reverse. What
Right.
we're saying is the reverse is okay.
Right.
It's good for Pottstown to take the L as long as your school district's getting the W.
Exactly.
That's not fair.
Now,
That's a sports metaphor, right?
It
Matt?
is, yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
there you go.
L-
That's right.
L's and W's.
That's why I didn't get it, because I'm a theater guy.
I guess I'm the jock on set
You are,
today.
yeah. there you go.
You are definitely the minority jock in this crowd of three
Right.
we have here.
And the funny thing is, people think other districts won't get anything out of this funding formula.
Right.
3 of my districts benefit from it within 146. Now, Pottsgrove doesn't.
Okay.
So we would have to find a way, and they would benefit if we equal out the, they would stay even if we equal out the special ed formula. We can hold them where they are. But Springford, Perkiomen, and Pottstown, if this formula was implemented, would all benefit from it.
Right.
Pottstown would be the biggest. And again, when you have some of the highest tax millage rates in the area, this would dramatically drop it.
Right.
And we would get an infusion into the schools that these schools need.
Right. So that would be a win in a W
That
in
would be a
several
win.
ways,
Yeah, right.
Because
That'd be a major W.
because the millage is what the taxes are based on, right?
Yes.
And so if that goes down, then it incentivizes people to move here.
Yep.
So the schools are going to be quote unquote better, and I
Right.
say quote unquote because we already think that the schools in Pottstown
The schools are great here. It's
are
just the
great,
amount of
right?
funding that we can't get
Right.
to them.
And people tend to look at things like, college matriculation, like how many kids go on to college. Well, that's not the end all be all for judging whether a school district is good, quote unquote good or not, right? So, but under that scenario, your taxes go down, the perception of the school district goes up, and the kinds of programs that can be offered are increased, and all of those things that people want when they're moving into a school district for their kids.
Exactly.
So that's a win-win, and so
Right.
it's beyond frustrating that not everybody is on board. So if
Well, I think people think of it in terms of of themselves, right?
Of
I mean,
course.
we live in a society that's selfish. Let's just be honest
Yes.
about what it is.
yes,
But I think you've made a good point on multiple occasions, Amy. Even if you want to look at it from a selfish perspective, I should want all kids to have an equal opportunity in education, because one day that kid's going to be the adult that's taking care of me.
Yes.
It's going to be the doctor
Yes.
in the hospital, the nurse in the nursing home, the lawyer that's preparing my estate, the fireman that's coming to put out the fire at my house.
yeah. Or
And if those
the
kids
person that's managing the long-term care facility where
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
living.
I want
or-
those
right.
kids to have a good education so
Right.
that when I need their help, they know how to help me.
Exactly.
That doesn't, again, to me, That's the selfish perspective. I want these
yeah.
kids to do better because, damn it, I want them taking care of me when I'm old.
And even if you don't care about all of that stuff, you definitely care about your school taxes. Everybody
that's
cares
just
about
it.
that. Everybody
People
cares
say,
about that.
why should I pay this in taxes? What am I getting for it? And what we saw in Springford as the district got better, property values rose 25 to 40%.
Right.
And the taxes were still among the lowest in the county.
Right.
And the school district was going up and up and up.
How is that not a major win?
So you said, okay, yes, you are paying more, but your home has almost doubled.
Right.
Because of the quality of the education, because of where the tax levels are.
Right.
That's what everyone should have. Look, I was blessed. We grew up on Long Island. We were poor.
Right.
We grew up on the other side of the tracks, but we were part of a very wealthy community on the other side of the tracks.
Right.
That was our school district.
Right.
We had everything we could have ever wanted. And that's what I think that when I came here and got on the school board, I tried to bring that idea. But as I've looked at Pottstown, you have a great school district. Stephen Rodriguez is a wonderful
Yeah,
superintendent
that's
who works his butt off.
Yes, he
the
does.
board is committed.
Yeah.
Mr. Pottstown himself, John Armato.
Yeah, right.
You couldn't get a better advocate for
Who
public
works for
education.
free.
Yeah.
Right.
Works for free.
And
Right.
Marlene is right there with him with everything that goes on. So you have wonderful people involved.
I think that we have the most dedicated teachers.
Your teachers, every
Also-
one of them is dedicated.
Yeah.
And they're taking as little bit as they have and making the most out of it. But it's time that we give them more.
Yes.
And
Right.
the pandemic has shown us the inequality in public education.
Sure.
Yeah.
We've talked about that on the show where, we've talked about certain school districts, and it might even be Springford. Listen, we're not here to beat up on
No,
another school
absolutely
district.
not.
But when you have some school districts that are able to give a Chromebook right off the bat to every student in a household,
Right.
meanwhile, Pottstown didn't even have enough money to get them out to the elementary schools. And when they at least did initially, it was one Chromebook per household,
family.
regardless of how many kids were in it. Now, Joe Rusevich, who says hello, by
Yes,
the way,
he's
he's
a
on the
great
show.
guy.
Joe Rusevich and the Foundation for Pottstown Education went out and solicited donations from the community. They solved the problem. So
Yep.
the Chromebooks problem solved. But it took months. Whereas some of these better funded school
Yeah,
districts
they were just up and running
Boom.
like that. Yeah.
Just like that.
It's the issue we had here, which really got to me, was when Stephen called me and told me we have 200 of these books for, I forget what the program was, they were federally funded, 200 Chromebooks, and we're not allowed to use them. And I'm like, what? Just use them. He said they won't release them. They're here, but we can't get what we need on them. And through back and forth with Senator Toomey,
Yeah.
his staff and I went back and forth, and I got a call finally from Stephen saying that they finally released these, that we can use them. And it was like, you had the ability,
Right.
but because of whatever it was
Yeah.
under federal law, we're in a pandemic. These kids need this computer. I mean, when I was up here handing out,
That's when I'm a big fan of ask forgiveness, not permission.
right, but they couldn't get access to them.
Right.
Yeah,
when we were
they were
handing
locked.
out the food at the schools, so I was up
Yep.
here a couple times, and I was giving the packets out to the parents. I'm thinking, these kids are going home with packets, dittos that we did in the 1970s and 80s.
Right.
Right.
No,
Like
when-
mimeograph, like purple
Right.
mimeograph
I remember
machine,
that as
right?
a kid.
Yeah.
Go down and get the packet of things. They just
Yes.
printed them. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
really rough. So we must fix this. It's a systemic issue throughout the Commonwealth. When we are among the bottom in the nation in funding public education in
Right.
such an advanced state as Pennsylvania, we should be embarrassed.
No, I think when your counterpart was here, or your future counterpart, Paul Friel was here,
Yes.
I think he told us that Pennsylvania is ranked 47th
Yes, in
out
funding
of
public
50
And it
for
varies.
education.
We were 48, we were
Yeah.
45, but
That's-
we're always down at the bottom.
That's the bottom. That's
we're at
the
the bottom.
bottom
It's
percentile. There's
embarrassing.
no way
Yes.
that anybody should be or can be proud of that.
No, there's nothing to be proud
No,
of.
I mean, somebody has to be last, just like poor Harrison when he
I
was,
don't wanna-
poor
I don't
Harrison
want
in
my
his
kids
track
to be-
career. Somebody's
Listen,
got to be last.
Let's go back
But-
to the selfish thinking. I don't
Let it
want
be
my
somebody
kids to be
else.
last.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
we gotta. Listen, John. We're with you 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just. Is there any? Let me ask this question. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Is there is an area where you think that you're making some
Yeah,
I
like
do.
progress
Well-
on getting it fixed?
Well, I want to say this. There isn't a colleague in the State House who isn't aware of Pottstown.
Okay,
No, I
so
think
we've
we
made
ma-
enough
well,
noise that
we
they
have,
changed.
and-
They changed the rules because of us, right?
Right.
We're not allowed in there anymore.
And it's among my colleagues. When I open my mouth, they're like Pottstown.
Yeah.
And I do push for my whole district. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we have been underfunded here. That this hole must be filled.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer tomorrow, next week. It's today.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a crisis that's beyond crisis.
Yeah.
And it has to be fixed. And to say where we are in public education is a disgrace. And I do believe, to your question, that we are making headway.
Okay.
Representative Kurt Sonny, who is the chair for education on the Republican side, is committed to working through this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have to get through the election,
Right.
see what happens afterwards, of course. But he's committed. We've spoken on multiple occasions. I do believe that we will see a fix. Now, whether it's fully funded,
Right.
I don't know. But even if we were able to get another $3 million a year in Pottstown, the difference would be dramatic.
Right. Let's start.
And I guess too,
chipping away.
it's about starting the wedge, right?
Yes.
Once you get that wedge in, every year after that, you can hopefully drive it a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further.
Look, on a totally different subject,
Yeah.
but I'll move into that a little bit, talk about getting the wedge in. When I came on, I visited one of the residents' homes. It's not even in my district. She's in Tim's district that had the arch collapse in a backyard. Now,
Yep.
we all know who we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention it.
Yeah. No,
because
down here on Walnut Street.
Yes.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't believe that this poor woman and her husband had this happen in their backyard and had this massive hole.
Right.
And thank God there was no loss of
So
life
now
or
we're
anything.
kind of
gosh,
shifting
right.
into infrastructure a little bit.
Infrastructure,
All
right.
right. Another topic
Another
that
favorite topic
Porchtonians
here.
are very familiar hearing. We talk about infrastructure on this show regularly.
Well, when we found out that there were arches that go under this town,
Right. They're all over the place.
there's a picture right there on the front of that newsletter. It was in the Mercury. We walked through one of the tunnels. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one of my favorite things to do.
You're feeling a little claustrophobic.
Yeah, and a little bit of a scaredy cat. And Pam Hacker, who works for me, is a former union electrician, and Pam was like laughing at me the whole time. I didn't go down the ladder into the manhole. We
wasn't
went
very
and went
nice.
through where it came out into the river. We were able to get $1.5 million to come into Pottstown, fighting for the grants to take on to fix the issue that she had on her property,
Right.
to do a full study of all those branches to see where else we had inefficiencies.
Right.
This had never happened here before.
Right.
But I made a plea to the governor himself saying, Governor, we can't do this. This town doesn't have the finances and the money, and we are going to have a massive issue.
There's going to be.
There's going to be a
like you said,
collapse.
thank God nobody was physically
Exactly.
hurt. But I mean, that could have it could have swallowed up her whole car.
Oh, she could have gotten in the car and she could have fallen right in.
Right.
And that was a massive hole.
Yes.
But it's the infrastructure. We must invest in the infrastructure in the Commonwealth. We
Right.
are an old state.
Right.
We are a Commonwealth, which means we're run differently than a state.
Right.
Not a state, we're different than other
Yeah.
states.
Right.
We have to invest in our infrastructure. And we've got to look at ways to bring money back in. Look, the manufacturing disappeared. How do we regenerate the manufacturing?
Right.
What are the new areas that we can invest in that then puts money into the infrastructure?
Right.
Yeah. Can we get some legal weed up in here and
Well,
maybe like
legal weed
generate
is
some
a thing
stuff?
that is looked at right
yeah,
now.
generate
Right.
some money, generate some revenue, and
It will generate between 300 and 500 million in revenue.
And
Right.
let's not get away from this point either. And everybody wants to malign it, but we have multi-billion-dollar corporations that use our roads, use our bridges, send their goods all over the state. They use our rails, and they pay zero taxes.
Yes.
Zero.
That's a big issue.
We have fossil fuel industries that extract billions of dollars worth of gas and
No
oil and
extraction
coal,
tax.
no extraction tax.
Yep.
And then put their
is
goods
that like the
on our
fracking
roads
now?
and bridges.
Like they don't like the fracking
There's
people.
no extraction tax.
There's no extraction
What the
tax.
frack, man?
And the governor has tried multiple times and put it in the budgets, and the
No.
legislators,
Right, so the
my
lobbyists
colleagues on
are-
the other side just don't support it.
So when people say to me, "Well, Matt, how are you going to fund all this repair and everything else?" There's billions of dollars sitting on the table that we're not collecting.
Yeah, absolutely, there's billions.
And my argument too. Now I'm getting fired up.
No, that's okay.
Fire up, man.
Here's my argument too, and I've not found anybody reasonable. I've found some kook balls that will argue with me, but I've found no reasonable man or woman who can tell me that improving our roads, our bridges, our railroad trestles, our dams, or anything else won't help small business. Explain to me how fixing roads and bridges will not directly impact positively small business. You
It'll-
can't do it.
It'll more than impact them in a positive
Right.
manner.
Right.
Look, do you know my push is to bring that train back?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
let's talk about
That would be like, listen, from a real estate perspective,
Oh, just-
I can tell you, it would
I'm
be
sorry,
like
I just watched the squirrel go up the
Yeah,
stairs
they're-
on the thing and come all the way down. So just
we're gonna get to the
squirrels
environment
are-
next.
Yeah,
Jeff. We're
you got so many squirrels back here more than I've seen in a year.
Do you see the mulch over here? They just dig it up constantly.
Well, you have like 75 of them running around as we're going
They're
on this show.
practically
But he went
domestic-
all the way up the stairs
They're
and all the way back
practically
down. So I apologize.
domesticated. And do you know what that's? My bedroom
Squirrel.
is right there. Do you know what that sounds like
Yeah,
on the?
squirrel. It's like up.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So
So
we were
no.
going back to the rail.
Yeah.
So from a real estate perspective, and we've seen this happen in other communities, communities right here in this state. Bringing back the commuter rail
Yeah.
would flip a switch on Pottstown. You
Yeah.
want to increase property values. You want to bring more tax dollars, tax revenue, and more people spending money into Pottstown. Develop that light rail,
Yes.
or develop an alternate commuting method, and Pottstown will turn on like a switch.
Yes.
And you know, it's a really, you talk about being in the right place at the right time. So we've been arguing and screaming about this rail. And I said to my staff, I need you to be creative. And I need you to go out and start looking. I got a call from Pam Hacker, who says, I saw this video on Facebook. Take a look at it, see what you think. So I watch it, and it's this gentleman named Peter Newman, who Peter was, I think you met Peter when he was here.
Okay.
Peter is big into what's called the trackless tram. And he's from Australia. So one night I said to my wife, I'm going to call Australia. And my wife just like looked at me and goes, whatever.
Whatever.
You know.
She's used to this.
Yeah,
right?
she's like used to it. So it's 10 o'clock our time. It's 10 in the morning their time. I get Peter on the phone. And he's like, well, who is this? And I told him who I was. And I said, Peter, we have an issue with public transportation that we want to find a solution to. I watched your video, really interested. Long story short, Peter taught at the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Peter is an international consultant for transportation who used to consult at the White House, and an environmentalist. And he and Dr. Charles Harsgrove, the two doctors, and I apologize for not saying Dr. Peter Newman, were coming to the United States a month after our phone call.
Okay.
So they came and
Talk
stayed
about
with me for 3
timing.
days.
Yeah.
And we presented at Montgomery County Community College about this trackless
Right. I
tram
remember
idea.
when
Right.
that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be back in the summer, but obviously when
Right.
COVID hit, they
Right.
couldn't. But he brought us an idea that we had never seen before. Now, is it the solution? I'm not saying it is.
Right. Right.
But if we don't think out of the box, if we can't get that train back on those rails, then what other options do we have? Last month, he gave us options. We did a Zoom with them from Australia. They had to get up at 3 in the morning to do it.
Okay.
We looked at the river. We looked at the air. We looked at the trails. We looked at the highways. And then we looked at the rail.
Right.
And each one, we put down this thing and said, here's where you are.
Right.
Is it possible to do air? It's very possible. It'll be very expensive.
Expensive. Right. Sure.
Is it possible to do the river? There'd have to be major improvements on dams and the way the river is laid out.
After we just got done taking a bunch of them out.
Exactly.
Right.
So you'd have to reconfigure the river. They do it, and they had places in the world where they're doing it. We cannot be so fixed on what are they doing up the street. We got to look at the world and say, what are they doing in Belgium?
Right.
Right.
Can we take that idea and bring it to the United States? Now, yeah, what are they doing in Jersey? Of course.
Right.
But we've got to go beyond. And when we're just here, we're not going to get to those infrastructure fixes.
Right.
Right.
Some of the fixes should be different.
Right.
What are the
Right.
innovative ways that we can do this that's less money? And helps business and brings in new businesses. If we were able to do this trackless tram, I'm just going to throw this out there because you talked about, will this help small business?
Sure.
And we can make it here in Pottstown. It's nowhere in the United States right now. How many jobs can we create by creating this product in America
Right.
that's sold from Pottstown or from Limerick or from Trapp or wherever?
Right.
Right.
And how
We'd be
much money-
we'd be the innovators.
So let's be the innovators once again.
Right.
Let's find the way that America gets back to being the innovators. And Pennsylvania led it in this country for
Sure.
a long time.
Sure.
And
The birth of the American and iron and steel
was
industry.
here.
Right.
Literally
Here.
right here
Yep.
in Pottstown and in our backyards.
Right.
Literally the first places it took off.
Infrastructure is where we're going to come back. Our governor has supported vocational education, career
Right.
and technical schools.
Yeah.
There's a future for us. I'm part of an organization right now where we're trying to start the Bank of the United States. I think it would be the 5th time it's happened. Twice under Hamilton it happened, and then 2 other times. It'll be, I think, a $2 trillion funding, and it'll be just for infrastructure.
Okay.
One of the worries is, can you get it? There's a possibility you can get it, but do we have enough laborers for all the infrastructure issues that you're going to have?
Sure, because
Yeah,
there's
so it's a good
shortages,
question,
right? So
right?
so this is another issue that's important to me because my middle son is studying VOTEC at Pottstown High School, which is one of the only high schools in this area, in this immediate area, that has
Comprehensive high school.
Comprehensive
Right.
high school, the only one.
Yep.
And he's studying auto mechanics and welding. And now that I'm in that world and reading and trying to understand what my son's into, right? I'm taking an interest in this. There will be a shortage of 400,000 welding jobs.
Wow.
400,000 jobs will be unfulfilled over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
If we don't start sending more kids to these trade schools. Because what's happening is we haven't encouraged those kids to go in, and the population of welders that's currently working, they're getting older. So they're going to be retiring
Right.
or moving up in the industry, and those entry-level jobs and those field jobs are going to be unfulfilled.
You know, here's where I think what happened. My parents were first-generation Americans. My father went to the 10th grade. My mother graduated from high school at 65. She was just short 6 months, and then when she lived in Florida, she decided she'd go back. But when their parents came to America, it was you went right to work.
Right.
Education was not paramount. There was 9 in my father's family. There were only 3 in my mother's, but they didn't have money. They lived in the tenements in Brooklyn.
Right.
It wasn't where it was. So my father was a laborer his whole life.
Okay.
He didn't want me and my brother and sister to be what he was.
Right.
So he pushed us to do something else.
Else.
So we didn't have to get up at 5 o'clock every morning and drive an hour and work till 5 o'clock every night and do the routine over and just about get by on ends meet. So I was the first out of the 10 grandchildren on my mother's side to go to college. I was a singer. I mean, and we pushed education.
Right.
And education is extremely important.
Right.
But we became the nation of everyone gets a college degree.
Right.
And we forgot that we need a workforce.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
now it's turning. You still could get a college degree and have the workforce. So I've pitched Temple University to see in the future if we can open a vocational career center at Temple where you can go and get a 4-year degree in welding,
I
but also
gotcha.
have the business side that you
Yes.
need.
Gotcha.
And,
Yeah.
and the whole educational side.
Right.
Right.
Because what we missed for years, and I'm going all over the place a little bit,
That's
but
okay.
I look at someone like Billy Joel. Billy Joel is a musician, great musician, but his brother-in-law was his manager, and then he lost all that money with him because he didn't have the time
He
or the
didn't have
energy to
the-
understand
right,
what was going on.
right.
Same thing that we do with this, but now we give you the business background. So if you start a welding company, you know how to do contracts,
Right.
disputes.
Right.
You understand all
Well,
of it.
Just to
The
get your
basic
get your
business
billing
principles.
done on time. Right.
Exactly.
So how many
The
times do you have a
basic accounting.
contractor come to your house and do work?
I do want to
And-
say this too. I mean, the other side of the coin too is that, you know, one of the things that I always heard when I was growing up, because I think it's my I'm a Generation Xer. I think all of us here on the set are. What we always heard was, you're not going to make any money being a tradesman,
Exactly.
right? Those days are over. I mean, my son's coming home with pamphlets from some of these trade unions and stuff. These guys
Yeah.
are starting $50,000-$60,000 a year, full
Like
benefit
this.
package. By the time they're done their journeyman, become a master,
Yeah.
they're making $75,000, $100,000 plus
Right.
in the trades.
And we need to take the stigma away from women in the trades. We are seeing more and more women go into the
Right,
trades.
sure.
And we want to see more and more women go into the trades.
Right.
It's a whole different dynamic than when we were kids.
Well, it brings, I think, by bringing the women into the trades, right? It's a different perspective, right?
Right.
We know, and I'm not going to. Men and women think differently. That's a fact.
Sure.
I'm not going to argue that with anybody. But men and women think differently. But if you can bring some of that different thinking into the trades, it's going to put a different perspective
Yeah.
on things.
Absolutely.
Talk about
Good point.
the ability, just like you mentioned with infrastructure, the ability to innovate requires looking at it from all sides, different perspectives, and trying different things. So I think, for me, I think that's why getting women, young girls, and everything else into STEM is so important,
Yep.
and to get them into the trades, right?
So I stopped saying STEM because I say STEAM, so we get
STEAM.
the arts in there.
Yeah, right.
But
I'm
it is.
sorry.
No. It's we need to find a way to make these jobs look more appealing, and I think that we're starting to see it. If you're an underwater
Welder. Yeah, yeah.
they're making hundreds per hour.
Yes, they are.
Hundreds.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, those people could walk away per year at $200,000 to $300,000.
Easy.
Now, I don't want to have that big steel and be 100 feet
Yeah, so,
underwater.
you know,
I
it
don't
comes
either.
with
It's a
it comes
dangerous
with
job,
risks,
but you're paying
obviously, it's
somebody to
dangerous.
take that risk.
Right, and some people don't fear.
Right.
So they're like, whatever.
The other guys that are making a lot of money too are the guys that put together the high tension wires for our power grid,
Yep.
and the guys that put together the windmills that you see for alternative
or
energy.
What about
and
the big, huge
the
cranes?
solar
like
panels?
the big cranes.
The big cranes.
The big
right in
cranes.
the city.
Those
big
dudes
things.
are making
It's big
mint.
money.
Yeah.
It's big money.
Louis Rieger wants to know what's my opinion. I'm just listening. I agree. Thanks for
On
tuning
the women
in.
in the
Louis.
this
Yeah,
room.
so that we do
Yeah.
have a bunch of people watching now,
Yeah,
and there
thank
have
you.
been some people that have been saying stuff. Joe Rusevich, thanks you for his work on the Chromebooks and getting the Chromebooks
No,
unlocked
thanks, Joe,
for the
all
kid.
his work he's done all these years.
Joe puts in a Herculean effort for sure. There was a couple of things. Bobby Flam was asking about Amtrak. We kind of covered that with the infrastructure.
Yeah,
The
and
biggest
Amtrak is still running. I think just that there's
Amtrak runs on a different route than through here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
and
through
it
here.
runs out of
Part of the
Paoli.
problem with the route through here is the rail is owned by Norfolk
Norfolk
Southern.
Yeah.
And look, I understand Norfolk Southern. They want to run on a schedule that they don't have to worry about anybody else on their tracks. And I respect that. But I think we can find a common way to work
Right.
with them.
Yeah.
And I think we will. I know we will.
So
you
do
know.
you get people that I've heard this about the train? The train will just bring crime and drugs to town. Well, first of all, I think we're already all full up there. I'm like,
Look,
and I grew up in a commuter town. I grew up in Fairfield County, Connecticut. You grew up in a commuter area
Absolutely.
in Long Island, right? So the Long Island Railroad went out there. It was Metro North where I grew up. The train brings one thing. It brings money.
Yep.
It brings people that can go into the city for higher paying jobs and then come out and live in the suburbs. It brings money and it brings jobs. That's
And-
the only thing that it brings.
people are always going to say, well, it's going to bring this, it's going to bring that. Everything brings that. And this isn't 1922, where the other way to get out here was a horse and buggy or a car that went 20 miles an hour.
Right.
You could hop in a car or an Uber if you want to do that and get out here just as fast.
Right.
So, there's an option to bring that. Now, you said you had some questions. I want to get to those so no one
Yeah,
thinks we
I
avoided
do.
them.
I just want to. I'm just trying to go back, and I
Just-
put the headphones on so that I
Yeah,
can hear
just checking
Amy.
the comments. Paul Scambato says
These
great
squirrels are
stuff.
so loud that I can't hear Amy. What was that?
My mother-in-law is reminding us that Pam Hacker used to live on the third floor, right in this house, right here.
She lived here, Pam?
Yes,
Oh, my gosh. Wait till I tell her.
right here on the third floor, which is empty and available for rent.
See, Amy Francis text me.
Yes, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Appreciate it. Joe says that the squirrels are
It's like an invasion back
they're
here.
saying they're looking at the giant nut sitting across from you.
Yeah, so I think we covered most of the stuff, and I do just want to remind everybody, if you're just checking in, or because I know there are some people that tune in and then tune back out, or there's people that come in the show late because of their commute. If you have a question for Joe, if there's something that you would like to hear him talk about, please put that up in the comment section. Amy and I will try to get to it and work it into the conversation. So if you have something that you want to talk about, or a question for Joe, something he's achieved, something about his candidacy, because you are running again, right?
Yeah.
You got to run like every 2 years.
Every 2 years. And
Every
we do
2
have a bill
years?
out that says
Wow.
the term goes to either 3 or 4 years with a total of 12 years and you're out. And I
Right.
think that's,
Term limits.
we need it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
No,
I think it's
I
time
You
for
want to
agree.
term
run for another
limits.
office, you run, but you've had your 12 years. And
But also, I feel like 2 years is like you're barely getting your feet wet. You're barely able to figure out the
Right.
way that things work, and then,
And then
you
you're
got to
running
focus on
again.
your reelection, and it's for a
I
4-year
totally
term.
believe,
seems-
and it's a Republican bill, and I've signed on to it right away, co-sponsored almost immediately. I think we need to do that. These jobs are, I made this a full-time job. I
Right.
did quit working for the Performing Arts Center because I felt that I needed to be here 24/7.
Right. Are there people that are state reps and senators that also have other?
Yeah, they will either be attorneys, farmers, business owners.
Right.
That they do keep the other side of the business. I chose not to do that.
Right.
I felt that I had to be, if I was going to do this, it's 100% or not.
Yeah, well, and I think that shows
You
because...
got a question on
No,
that?
you're just getting some kudos. Dave Charles is saying hello.
Hey, Dave.
Great guy, Dave. And
yeah,
the things that Dave does. Dave, thanks for the time slot.
You bumped him.
I didn't want to bump him. I told him, show up. Come on over.
But Dave's coming back next
He's
week,
coming
so
back next
we
week.
made an adjustment.
I'm going to do a flashby.
So Dave Charles is saying hello. Pam Gormish Doherty.
Yes, thanks for tuning
from
in.
Blues End Wellness Center. She's saying that Joe was really great in supporting his business during the COVID closure.
Her business, yeah.
And you might have a couple more things you want to say about future business support. Chris Golden is saying she thinks you do a great job. Keep it up. And Dave Charles says, I don't know much about being a politician, but I support Joe. Joe is in the community constantly.
Yes, and I think that is definitely recognized by folks in
Most
your
people.
constituency, and for those of us that are on the other side of town, not in your constituency. You are there. You're raking leaves at Edgewood Cemetery, and you're going to Steel River and supporting them, and you're out and about, and you are meeting with people and talking with people, and you're walking the walk and talking the talk.
I wanted to go along with that, and then I do want to get into some business stuff, especially related to COVID. But
yeah,
I saw you walking in those arches. I saw you in my neighborhood. I live in the 26th district. I don't live in the 146.
Right.
I saw Joe Ciresi in the 26 trying to get Pottstown help. I see Joe Ciresi down at the farm. Again, in the 26. It's not in his district. You know who I don't see walking through the 26th district doing stuff like that in my town? My current representative.
right.
So I got to give you credit for that. I got to give Paul Friel, who's the candidate, not even in the office yet. I've already seen that man in the community.
Right.
That's who you got to support with your vote. I don't care what the platform of the party is or anything else. To really, at the end of the day, I want to know that the people that are being elected and working for me are working for me.
Right, and they know what's going on in the community.
Exactly.
And I think that, even though your part of Pottstown is on the other side of town, it's still part of Pottstown. And so you got to know what's going on in the entire borough to be able to represent us.
We'll get calls to our office. We don't ask where you live. We'll just help you out.
Just help.
And I know that you did, a lot of folks were saying that you helped out. There was a lot of unemployment-related
Yes.
questions and things.
We
and
had
you helped
thousands of people.
a lot of folks.
And around the nation.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, we helped, I think we went back and looked at 6 states. Arizona, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and I don't know if it was Alabama or Arkansas, where we tried to connect them up with their people in those states because people were so desperate for help.
For information. You're just getting a lot of kudos, and people are saying they've already voted for you. They like the early voting. And the one thing I do, again, I want to get into the business because part of the reason why Amy and I started this show, one of the reasons why we started Porchcast at all, was to promote local business.
Right.
So we just talked the other day or yesterday about Tuesday, our last show, Tuesday, that there's some new grant money that the governor somehow made $2.2 million available. And I just wanted to ask
we got a
you
visitor.
about
Hey, it's Annie.
where you see your role or where you see the state's role in further developing and aiding small business.
So, look, small businesses is our backbone, is our lifeline. COVID has hit them dramatically. Our restaurants, our bars, our small business. It has been extremely difficult under a pandemic to legislate and to move this forward. And what we talked about before we got on the air, where we're seeing our numbers go up to higher numbers. And whether you believe this is real or not, it is real. Science tells us it's real. But we have to support our businesses. So when the pandemic first started, myself and Representative Pam Schneider, who's from Greene County,
Okay.
all the way to the other corner of the
Yeah,
state.
right. Literally the opposite side of the
We
state.
introduced a $50 million package to help our small businesses.
That's William Paul Barogli's dog. He drops off beer for us on
I'm like, out of the
Porchcast for
corner of
happy
my
hour.
ай, I can see a 4-pack.
So him
of
and
from the
Brooke
pub.
Martin, the president of the Pottstown Rotary, just made their delivery of
They didn't want to. They didn't want to
pub
come on.
Pottstown United Brewing Company beer.
there
I
you
guess
go. So there you got the
they
beer
didn't
right
want to
there.
interrupt you, but I'm interrupting anyway.
No, that's
So
fine.
I'm going to
Just
go. I'm
promote
going to
the
go
business.
grab that.
Go grab it.
And you
Yeah.
finish the thought.
All right, so I'll go through it. So
You were in Greene County.
So Pam and I came up with this bill right out of the gate. Wanted the money to help small business. Then, as we looked at the restaurant industry being hit so hard, we came up. Myself and Representative Tina Davis introduced a bill to help the restaurants under a certain level, an amount of employees. We're sitting on $1 billion right now. $1 billion that must be distributed to help our businesses, our infrastructure through COVID. But the decisions that we have to make through COVID have been extremely difficult. You getting that on camera?
Yeah.
Good. That's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a hard call to make some of these decisions, and when you make them, people get upset with you. Well, why did you do that? Why we need to do this, and I understand that, but there's also a negotiation that happens. of
Right.
How do we get what we need?
Right.
I look at the 146th as an area that was not serviced to the way it should have been for a long time. We've brought almost $14 million in grants back to the 146th district.
What's that number again? Just repeat that.
14 million.
$14 million.
And it has been through our fire companies, our schools,
Right.
our boroughs and municipalities. We just got money approved for the trestle in Royersford, which
Right.
is helping the Royersford Riverfront redevelopment.
I saw there's
Yep,
a
saw
grant
that.
coming out for the parks in Limerick, right?
Yes,
or
there's
a
a
park
grant
in
for the
Limerick.
parks in Limerick. There's Lewis Road, a redevelopment of Lewis Road with sidewalks from Ridge Pike all the way down to the high school.
Right. And you just mentioned the fire departments. That was in the paper a couple of weeks
We
ago.
just got a lot of money with the fire department. So we are working extremely hard to help improve. But COVID is still sitting here causing issues.
Right.
And while we're not seeing unbelievable numbers in our hospitals yet, or unbelievable deaths as we did in the beginning, we're seeing a major tick up again.
We are seeing a major tick up, and you were sharing some information before we went on the air with numbers. And,
I'll tell you, this is the numbers we got today, and this is
So
not
listen,
a scare.
before you get
Go
into
ahead.
that, I do want to kind of circle around and make a point.
Go ahead, I'll-
And I'm only doing it. I'm doing it because I don't have to be politically correct.
Nope.
It's my show. I'll do what I want.
Yep, that's the beauty of the show. We can say whatever
The
we
fact
want.
of the matter is by bringing that $14 million back into the community, by getting money that's going to fix sidewalks, improve parks, and everything else, that helps small business. And for the
course.
people that can't wrap their head around how that helps small business, I'm going to explain it for you. That road crew or that paving crew that's fixing the sidewalk, they're going to get hungry. They're going to go to your sandwich shop to buy a hoagie. They're going to stop by your convenience store to grab a water or a pack of cigarettes or a stick of gum or a candy bar. Their cars, their trucks, their equipment, it's going to run out of gas. They're going to come to your gas station to pump gas into their equipment. That's money coming back directly into your community that's going to support the small business that's right down the road for you.
I've
After work, they're going to
it,
get
Matt.
thirsty.
You've seen it too. Like I've been at Grumpy's before
I've
when
seen it.
Ford road crew guys come in and get their sandwiches and get their lunch there. I've seen
Right.
it.
Right.
They got to come into town to get their lunch.
They're going to get thirsty. They're going to go to the pub to grab a beer or a burger after work.
Yep.
So that's how that money supports small business. Period.
And it's where we as legislators push hard to make sure that our communities are able to get what they get. In our fire companies to support, where they're supporting the homes and they're all volunteers and to be able to buy another truck or make
Yep.
improvements, and you get that grant in there. There's something called RACP money or RPAC. We have never seen one come to the 146.
What is that?
It's where it's a major project, but it's a business that is going to create jobs. It's an economic driver. So you apply for it, and the governor gives this out once a year.
Right.
So I think we have 4 for the first time in our district that have applied. Now, whether we get it or not,
Right,
we're
right.
pushing hard for them. But that's throughout the 146. I think one is here in Pottstown.
Right. We got
So
And then also along that line, Lou Rieger,
Yep.
who owns High Street Music, is asking, will there be grant money to help businesses like mine? And if you go back to the show on Tuesday, you'll see that there is grant money available for creative businesses, Lou. There's information about
yeah.
that through the Fox
got it right here, Matt.
Small Business Development Center.
So this is Lewis. I'll see if I can find the link to this.
Long story
particular
short, because I don't want to
program.
hog up too much of Joe's time,
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Lou, there is grant money available for businesses like yours. Amy and I will hook up with you and get you plugged into that link so that you can find out more about the grants that are available for creative businesses. We talked about it on the show on Tuesday.
Yeah, we went with
Yep.
Lou to see the PNC building that they were looking to buy, to renovate, to make into a venue, to
Right,
make
right,
classes.
right.
So there are grants that you can look at on the state level also. And there's federal grants and there's NEA grants.
Okay.
But COVID has put a halt on so much.
Right.
And it's not just Pennsylvania, people.
Right.
It's
No,
not
it's-
just the 146th district of Pottstown or this legislator. It's the world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No one did this.
Right.
I don't blame our president. I don't blame our governor. I don't blame anybody for where we are. It
You're a nice
happened.
guy.
Well, look, you could always
I'm not
point
willing to be as magnanimous,
Well, but
maybe,
what I'm
but
saying is-
again, I don't have to. I don't have to.
how it was handled. We
Right.
could argue.
That's a different
Sure.
story.
But
Right.
getting it,
Oh yeah, cause it. Yeah,
no
right,
one
right,
caused
right,
this.
right.
The world is being affected by it, and as
Right.
legislators, we need to come together rather than be apart and arguing over this, that, and the other. Let's get in a room. Let's really talk about what are the solutions to public safety and public health.
Right.
Right.
'Cause there's a lot of people who still won't leave their home.
Here we are right here. It's a horrible situation. We can, we can point fingers and blame, but here we are. Let's figure out how to deal
Right.
with it, and
And we're all wearing masks. That's another big battle that's going on. Is the
which is
mask wearing.
ridiculous. Which is ridiculous.
I
Why is
hate
it?
this thing on my face,
I
as I
do
know
too.
you do.
I
I
know,
do too.
sweating.
Right,
Yeah.
I got all things over here, and you think
Yes.
I don't know
Yeah.
what clothes this was made from. I mean, I'm glad I have it, and I know that it's helping reduce the virus.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't stop it.
No.
Major reduction, but
That's a
That's
drive
true.
we
by.
got to do what we got to do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
Joe
people
Ciresi.
know we're here,
Yeah.
so they drop stuff off. They
There you
beat their
go.
horn. It's great. It's all part of the
Yeah, we got
community.
dogs running by. There's birds. There's
So
squirrels.
there is a good question. There's another good question on the table related to stimulus. Do you? And I again, I don't want to get into the federal stuff.
Right.
That's a whole different.
Right, I
and
can't
you're not
speak on
part of that.
No.
Yeah.
Is there any talk about doing any more stimulus from the state? Like, is there any more talk about trying to free up some state money to provide
Well,
stimulus checks?
there's $1 billion of the CARES money that we're talking about how to use.
Okay,
So
a billion, a B with a billion.
Yes, $1 billion. Now, let me say this: we're 5.5 billion deficit right now in Pennsylvania.
Right, right,
That's a hole we need to figure out how to fill.
yeah.
But that billion needs to be used to help small business, to help people who are having hard times with their mortgages and rents, to make sure the landlords get the money that they deserve.
Right.
Right.
Because we have a lot of small landlords too who are suffering through this. Just because you own a property doesn't mean you're rich and you
Sure.
can be putting out money without
Well,
being
yeah,
paid.
you still got mortgages and taxes
You
to
know,
pay and all that. Yeah.
again, to go back though, I think we gotta do something to put the onus back on these banks. Like, why are we having to spend our tax dollars to go back to the banks when the banks could really just defer the loan payments to the,
To the
end
end.
of the mortgage?
There was a comedian.
It's not that
No.
hard.
And who was it? Vic Benedito, the comedian.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He
Vic,
did a whole thing on
the
it.
That's the
milk
guy
and
that
bread
you
guy.
like.
Milk and bread guy. He was at Warriors for it at Soul Joel's.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I'm a real estate guy. We
Well-
talk about mortgages all the time. It makes perfect sense.
I introduced a bill to
Okay.
any Pennsylvania financial institution to put it on the back end. The bill never ran because it's the speaker's discretion whether a bill runs or not.
Right.
But you're getting the money, so it's delayed. They're still going to pay it.
Right,
Who
right.
says that at the fourth month you could come up with $5,000 when you didn't have it all that time?
Right,
All of a sudden you got
right.
$5,000?
Right.
It's unrealistic.
It's insane.
You're not helping anybody by doing that.
So, but for the time being, we're at where we're at, and what you're saying is that $1 billion of kind of discretionary funding or money that you have in order to make some
To help with
decisions
COVID, right.
that money's going to help excuse me, yeah, it's going to help the banks ultimately. You might as well
if
just
you're
hand
paying a
it
bill,
right to them.
Well, it was. We
But,
were doing.
it's going to help pay people's bills, their mortgages, and their
Well,
rent
it's
payment.
we don't know where it's going to end up,
Okay.
but it is going to be, we're looking at a bunch of different programs that when we come back post-election, that money has to be used by a certain date. That
Okay.
we have to come to an agreement on both sides of the aisle where it's going.
Okay.
There's a big fight on it right now,
Right.
but we will hopefully get to the point where it's distributed properly. And I'd like to see $100 million. Right now, I'd like to see $100 million go into our restaurants to help offset the issues that they're going through.
Right.
Right.
Like this. Give them $100 million
Right, and
grant. I don't want to see loans.
Right.
Loans is the wrong way to go.
Right.
If you don't have any money, how are you going to pay that back?
Right.
Right,
And then-
and for the restaurants, as we head into the cooler months, it's gonna be and into the cooler months, and with an uptick in cases, it's gonna be a big setback for any
them.
progress
so
that they
let's
may have
figure out
made.
how we can give this money, divvy it out.
Yes, yeah, yep. All right, Paul Scambato, you are right. He says that a prosperous Pottstown also means prosperity and increased home values in all of the surrounding towns, like in the Grove. You are right. So.
Well, I don't have all the answers, and there is no legislator that's ever going to have all the answers. And I do listen. I hear what people have to say, and we're never always going to agree on everything.
No,
I
you
say
can't.
this all the time. We're married. Do you agree with your spouse 100% of the time?
No.
I mean, someone said to me once, "I'm lucky if it's 50."
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good, pretty generous target right there. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not going to agree. But there's a couple of things about not agreeing. The first one is to be civil to each other. The
Yes.
second is to hear what they have to say. And the third is to try and find where you can compromise.
Right, and what the ultimate common good is, without any personal
Right. This
agenda.
is not personal.
Right. So, in just like in a marriage or in a relationship, sometimes we dig in and we just want to win. We just want to be right. But if you can step back and let go of that need to be right and just think about what the common good is for everybody involved, then it's a win for everybody.
Right. Look for the best scenario that helps the most people.
That helps the most people.
And are you
Exactly,
going to make
and
the
that's what
wrong
you have to
decision? Everybody's human. There's going to be times when you make it and you say, I was in error.
do. Right, and if you own up to it, then that's something that most politicians do not do, is own up to their
Well,
to
because
their
it shows weakness.
right. Well, no, I think
Well,
it
people
shows
believe it's
humanity.
weakness.
I think it
Yeah.
shows humanity. It doesn't show weakness. It
Right.
says, all right, you know what? I had bad intel, or that was the intel I had at the time, and I made that decision based on that
Exactly.
intel. But the intel has changed.
Right.
Unfortunately, with our political landscape the way it is, the way we've designed it to be, we should be able to switch on the fly when we realize we've made a mistake. But the two sides just get entrenched, and then nothing figures
And a
out.
name call. It's
Right.
like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that hyperbole.
When we have people come in our office, some people will try and tell us what party they are, and I say, I don't care what party you are. I don't care if you voted for me. I'm your representative.
Right.
We have to be here to help you. I don't need to know any of that information.
Yep.
What's your issue?
It's irrelevant to the issue.
Exactly. Has no, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. I don't really care what you are. I don't
You-
care if you vote, don't vote, if you're registered.
Right, you're a constituent, and
You're a
that's
Pennsylvanian. If we can help you, we will.
right.
All right, so there's even more people on the show now. We're coming down to 6 o'clock. We are going to go past the 6 o'clock hour just because we're talking about a lot of important stuff, and
Yeah.
the election's right around the
And
corner.
just full disclaimer, Matt, we may run out of battery in that camera.
We
so
might
if
run
the
out of
screen goes
battery on the
black, we'll
camera,
still keep
but
talking.
you'll still be able to hear
Let the
us.
squirrels know. They'll go get a battery. Maybe we can get them on a treadmill or
You
something.
like
There's
these
so many
squirrels?
of them.
It's
My other
crazy.
point being with this is that if you've tuned in late, the show is streamed to both Facebook and YouTube. On YouTube, you can find us at Porchcast Pottstown. On Facebook, you are watching on Matt Green at Glocker Real Estate. Please share this message. If you want to see Joe continue the work that he's done over the past 2 years, help spread the message to other voters. Help spread the message to your Facebook page, your group. Share the message out. It helps us help you help us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So go ahead and do that. We're also looking for subscribers on YouTube. I need
Yes.
people to go over to YouTube.
Further up in the comments, you'll see the
I
you'll see the
thank
link to the YouTube. I put it
I
in
can't
there.
hear.
She
Yeah.
said further up, you'll see the people where how to do YouTube.
Oh, all
happened?
right.
Did
Yeah,
you lose
cool.
your? Oh, you took
Because you
your.
got the air conditioning going.
Yeah.
Oh no, you took your headphones off, man. What happened?
I'll put it back on.
Right.
There you go.
Anyway,
And
What
and I will say this too, is that in this particular election season, everyone is feeling overwhelmed, and it feels sometimes like there's little that we can do to impact things on a national level. But what we can do is we can impact things on a local level, and those things affect our day-to-day quality of life. And so learn about your candidate, your local candidates, for things like your state legislature and your state senators, and learn about the people that are representing you locally on the issues that affect us every day, things like school funding and taxes. And so that's where you can really feel empowered, like you're making a difference, because you do make a difference in people's lives every single day.
Yes.
And so if you're feeling overwhelmed and like who you vote for doesn't matter, that's not at all true. You need to who we do vote for does matter every single day.
I don't remember
There's
what
Annie.
state or what locality it was in, but I just heard this fact the other day. And again, I don't remember the state. It was Michigan. In the last election, the last general election, federal election, when you put all the math across the board, the difference between Trump beating Hillary in every election precinct was 2 votes. 2 votes made the difference.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's
Every single person that's sitting there saying, I'm not voting because it doesn't make a
you
difference.
could
No
have been
one
one of
cares
those two
what I think.
to swing it one
That's
way or
right.
the other.
Yep.
2 votes difference
Every
in
vote
Michigan.
counts.
Every vote counts. Get out there and do
Get
it.
out and vote.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, women have only been able to vote for 100 years. It's less than half of our nation's history, and so I don't take that lightly. Voting
Well,
is
minorities,
very
a black community has only been able to vote since the 60s.
right.
You
right.
know,
So
what was it, 60 or 50s? But it hasn't
Yeah,
been
no,
100
yeah.
years.
Right. So
No.
so I don't take
60
that
years or
I
50
don't take
years.
that lightly. Voting is a right and a privilege, and it's a duty. Right, one of the 3 civic duties we've talked about on the show before. But I always feel really empowered when I go to vote, because I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a citizen. Yeah.
So the last thing that we kind of wanted to get into, and it's another topic of discussion on the show, it's the environment and how it relates mostly to recreation. We talk a lot about our local parks, and you mentioned it too. You've brought $14 million of funding back in, some of which has gone to update
Yes.
local parks and things like that. Do you have any other specific ideas or plans, or is there something in the works that you could talk about that affects our environment or passive or active recreation?
Look, it's they call it the RGGI bill, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, to reduce the carbon footprint as much as we can. Now, we sit where I can see the steam coming from the nuclear power plant. That's a clean energy source. Nuclear, yes, is controversial.
right.
But it's considered clean energy because there's no carbon coming out of that plant.
Right.
That increases the CO2 levels in the environment and on the planet itself. We are headed to a disaster in the world if we don't look at climate change as being real. And we can argue how this climate change happened, whether it was from all the humans and everything we
Right.
did and from extracting the gas, or it's the Earth's cycle.
Just the natural cycle of things, right.
We have to find a solution.
Right.
Because here in Pottstown, how many floods have we seen?
They're only getting worse.
Getting worse.
And every flood is
More-
biblical.
yes.
500 year,
Yes.
100-year flood. I mean, yes, they put numbers on it, but they were never meant to be 2, 3, 4 times in a year.
No.
We talked about the arches, the water flowing through that. How do we fix this? Because those are going to collapse from this constantly happening.
Right.
The temperatures are warmer.
Right.
We're seeing forest fires around the nation. and
Well, it's
droughts.
almost the end of October, and you're sitting here in a golf shirt,
Right.
and I have a long sleeve shirt on. I'm
And
sweating.
it's in the 70s.
Yeah.
We're seeing our winters become mild.
Right.
And our summers become hotter. So we have an obligation to make sure that we find ways to slow the process if we can, or to adapt to what's happening that we can survive and live. And that's an industry in itself.
Right,
There's
right.
billions if
Oh, yeah.
we work that.
Right.
Sure.
Or go back to the light rail, or to the whatever the
Exactly.
right. So that can reduce carbon emissions.
I think one will take a diesel locomotive is the equivalent of 20 cars. We can get 500 cars off the road. So 480 cars less in their emissions for 20 cars for one diesel locomotive.
Right.
We have climate deniers and environmental deniers. The chair of the environmental committee for the state,
The chairman
The
of
chairman
the
of the
environmental
Republican side
committee
believes
is a
that-
science denier.
yes, absolutely.
Oh, that
I
makes
can't
perfect
even,
sense.
I mean, I just can't.
Yes,
It's-
and he's on the Republican side, not the Democrat chair, but the Republican chair. He said his trees love CO2 and it helps with his growing of whatever he's growing. I mean, what COVID has shown us, if there was ever a positive, which is not through this COVID crisis, but environmentally,
Oh,
we have seen a
sure.
massive positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when all the factories and industry was shut down in China, the
see
satellite
again.
pictures were
Yep.
The
just
same thing
flabbergasting.
happened over Los Angeles
Yes.
Yeah,
during
the
the
smog was
initial
gone.
stay-at-home orders. NASA took a picture of Los Angeles, and I don't remember the percentages, but there was less smog.
Yep.
Right.
We saw it around here. We talked about it on the show. I just went back and looked at some of our old episodes. We had bald eagles flying over. People were seeing deer walking around in the streets. There was
Yes.
all kinds
Oh,
of critters,
yeah,
birds,
right. Yeah,
birds
in
coming
Europe,
back
there was
in
there
the
was
neighborhood
animals
because
coming
we
down into the
weren't out
streets.
riding around every day all over the place.
It was funny because one of my friends said, the birds have been weird through this COVID. I said, no, I don't think we paid attention to the
That's
birds.
right. Now,
until
yeah.
we were home and sitting outside and watching them.
Yes.
The
yes.
animals have always done what they've done, but we really never watched them.
Right.
We've appreciated our environment more. We've appreciated the outdoors. So these are initiatives that, as legislators, we need to continue to support. Our parks, our open spaces, our trails,
Right.
our waterways. Pennsylvania doesn't sit on an ocean.
No.
But we have a waterfront. And my colleagues in Erie reminded me of that. He
Yeah.
said, we got waterfront in Erie.
That's right.
But
That's
we
right.
have rivers
Yeah.
everywhere. And the rivers need to be utilized and cleaned. And, we are cleaning the waterways. We are becoming some of the better waterways around that are clean. The Superfund sites are being cleaned up, and it's helping all of that. But we need to continue down that path.
I think just like you're saying, the silver lining in the cloud has been that because there was the stay-at-home orders, because people were looking to get outside of their house, we now have more people who are seeing what's going on in the environment because they're spending more time there. I mean, I went camping all summer long. The state parks that I went to were packed.
Right.
I mean, there was more people that I've seen in state and county parks than ever before. And I think that's a way to reach people because now they're seeing it for themselves.
Well, and you also got to reconnect the family.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that was another
Yeah.
big thing.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
know,
there were a lot of parts about stay at home that I really enjoyed, and that was one of them. I mean, I haven't seen my parents in over a year, and it was months that I went without seeing my in-laws, but there was a lot of family time with Harrison and Levi and myself, and Harrison went down to the park just about every day and walked down by the river. And like Matt said, that really is a positive outcome, is that people were not traveling out of state and they were enjoying the parks that we have here and
Right.
seeing it and hopefully realizing what kind of resources we have here.
Pennsylvania is a wonderful state filled with resources.
Yes.
I've lived in 3 states. This is my 3rd state to live in, and this state has it all.
Yeah.
It's got, if you want to go to the ocean, you're an hour and a half
Yep.
to the Jersey Shore. No
Yep.
traffic. It could be longer.
Yeah.
But you have the rivers and the lakes.
Right.
You have the mountains. You
Yep.
have the cities. You have the small towns. Everything is here that you could want.
We had, at the end of the summer, we walked down across into the 5, into North Coventry, and went to Take It Outdoors Outfitters and went kayaking. So
Yep.
we walked from our, what I would call a quasi-urban home across the river and went kayaking. So we had outdoor activity from our urban home. It was like the best of both worlds.
And
If you think about this too, and this is just a little fun fact I heard the other day. So think about the size of Texas, right?
Yeah.
You could fit, I don't know how many Pennsylvanias inside of Texas.
Right.
But Pennsylvania has more protected public land, protected by the state. So we're talking state forest, state parks, state reserves, game lands, fish and boat commission properties. Pennsylvania has more preserved land than all of Texas
Wow.
combined.
we have more highways than the whole New England combined. That's another.
So, I mean, but
roadways.
again, that
Yeah.
goes to show how big outdoor recreation and the environment
Well,
and
and
everything
how
is to
important it
us.
has been to
How
our
important
state
it
that
is.
it's protected like that.
Well, and when you've lived in multiple places, you get to see the different things that are successful, and what works, what doesn't work, and the positives. This state has so much that we should be proud of,
Right.
that we should embrace. And again, Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. We're Pennsylvanians, and we need to remember that.
Right.
So as you say,
good point.
environmentally, we have a long road ahead of us. We have to get people who don't deny science, whether, like we said, whether it's happening naturally, whether it's being caused by, you have to acknowledge that it's happening.
Right.
When the minute you deny it, we go nowhere.
So listen, folks. This is the message. This has been Joe Ciresi's message. We've covered every topic that we wanted to cover today on the show. We've talked about education, healthcare, the environment. We've talked about infrastructure. We've talked about support for small business. We've talked about COVID. If you're agreeing with the things that Joe Ciresi's saying, and you live in the 146th district, go and vote for him. It's important. If you don't show up and vote for Joe and somebody who doesn't share your opinion gets elected, you only have yourself to blame.
Yep.
So one more time, help us share Joe's message. Help us share Porchcast. Share it out to everybody that you can so we can share Joe's message far and wide. Porchtonians are very good at doing that. When Paul Friel was here, Paul Friel's episode of Porchcast has literally been seen thousands of times.
great.
That's
Paul's
thousands
great.
of people that are going to see Paul's message, agree with it, and vote for him. Let's do the same thing for Joe Ciresi. Let's get his message out there so that he can get reelected, so that he can keep helping Pottstown.
We look
Let's-
forward to celebrating your victory.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to take a minute to thank all the people in the 146th district, Pottstown in particular, since we're here in Pottstown, for their support, making me part of their community, bringing me into their lives, and allowing me to represent them. This is a great honor to be able to represent. And it does come with hard days, but that we
Right.
didn't get into this for all fun and games.
Right.
And I believe that as a representative, we should be doing the hard work. I should be shoveling. I should be picking up the trash.
Right.
This is what we're supposed to do. We're not just there to look and appear. And I always say to people when I come
Glad
to events,
handers.
Right.
We don't need another glad
I don't
hander.
need to come to take a picture. Give me a chore. Well, we
Right.
don't want to do that. No, I'm telling you to do it.
Right.
Call on us when you need help in our office. Say, can we get somebody out to help us? That's what we're here for. And I'll go. And people are amazed that I'll answer the phones at the office. You're answering the phones? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
My
The
staff
it
is
was
busy.
ringing. It was ringing.
Right. My staff sometimes says, don't answer. I'm like, no, I'll answer. So
Correct.
one day I was like the receptionist. I just kept writing messages, and then one person goes, well, who is this? I said, well, it's your state rep.
Right.
Well, you're answering the phone? Yeah, I'm answering.
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Right.
I'm vacuuming the office. I was
Yes,
cleaning
well,
the
you know
bathroom.
what? It's like running a small business.
Right.
Guess who has to plunge the
And
toilet when the
my
toilet is right.
exactly. And my employees are not paid where it's through the roof. They shouldn't have to do those type of things. We're all a team.
Right.
Like I said, we have helped thousands and thousands of constituents in 2 years. And it's a team effort.
Right.
It's not about Joe Ciresi. It's about the team that we bring into the 146th district. But it has been an honor. I want to continue to serve this community. I remember when I was on the steering committee to build Steel River. And when we decided, when Marta took me to, what was it, Woolworths? That's what it wasn't Woolworths.
It was
What
Newberry's.
What was it?
It was
Newberry's.
J.J. Newberry.
Yeah, and we walked through that. And I went, Marta, what are you going to do with this place? And then to see the vision of what it became.
Right.
The potential, Pottstown has come full circle in the 10 years
Yep.
since that theater has opened.
Yep.
I will put a plug in for Steel River Theater. I'm sorry I have to do
Yes.
that. I'm a board member out there, and I
Yep.
love the arts. Help support them through this COVID crisis.
So I will piggyback on that and say, remember that the Amazing Raise is happening through Tri-County Community Network. You can make your fundraising dollars go further because they do have bonus gifts that they are giving to the nonprofits participating in the Amazing Raise. So we are not having holiday parties this
No.
year at our office, and I'm assuming that there's a lot of other businesses out there that are not having holiday parties. So we decided to take the money that we would have spent on our holiday parties and spread it around
Make
the
a
community.
donation.
So we have taken advantage of the Amazing Raise, and we have made some donations to our favorite
But
charities.
because we're not having holiday parties, it hurts our local restaurants and establishments.
Yes. So
Buy
here's the
that
other
food.
thing. Here's the other thing that I'm going to do. So we typically have two parties. We have one for our clients, our client appreciation party. So we've taken the money that we would have spent on that and donated it through the Amazing Raise to our favorite nonprofits. And then we typically have a staff party, which we can't do either. So I'm going to, there's a lot of great restaurants that are in town that
Yes.
are struggling. So I would recommend this for everybody for their gift giving. Go buy a gift card to the pub or to Blue Elephant or to Grumpy's or to Blue Zen or to any of these places and buy a $100 gift card and give it to your staff or to instead
Or
of a
buy
gift
them dinners and deliver it to their house.
or buy them a yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
You know.
there's this is the time to get creative and think outside
Let's
the box.
help as many of these businesses as we possibly can and
Yes.
continue to help them.
Yep.
But I want to thank you both for having me here. This has
Thank
been great.
you.
I
Thank
loved
you.
it. The 700 squirrels that were here.
Yeah, they love it
Squirrel
too.
eradication is next on your list of things to help
I mean, if
with.
they're unionizing
Or-
back there, it looks like
or-
they're holding a meeting.
Or relocating. Maybe we'll have a squirrel relocation program.
Well, you know, I'll leave you with this. So we never had a squirrel in our neighborhood. Our homes are almost 20 years old. And
Would you
about
like
3
some?
years ago, we saw the first squirrel. And I was like, wow, a squirrel. My wife's like, oh, man, a squirrel. Now we've got them everywhere. And my wife looks at me and says, see what you did?
See?
I like them.
Joe Ciresi, friend of the squirrels.
So, Amy, do you want to hit everybody with some news?
Oh, yes.
We got about 10 minutes left till 6:30.
until battery dies.
I don't know. The battery could die right away,
moment.
but they're
All
still
right.
going to hear us.
All right. So shout out
And
to
Joe,
Paul Friel.
don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Stay
Shout
stay
out to
with
Paul
us.
Friel, who is we talked to a couple of weeks ago, running in the 26th. We would like to see him working with Joe. So shout out to Paul. Sunday, October 25th. This coming Sunday. The Strive Initiative with our friend Dave Charles is showing a free drive-in movie. I'm hoping that there are still tickets left for folks. So you can go to the Strive Initiative, striveinitiative.org, and register. It is a free event. It is at 6:30 on Sunday the 25th at Sunnybrook Ballroom Drive-In, but you do need to register because they're going to have some
It's a great event. I wish I
conversation.
could be there.
Yeah, they're going to have some conversation and talking points and discussions about race relations. Very
And
important
then
right now.
Dave Charles is going to be on the show with us on Tuesday.
Yes. Spread the warmth. Winter coats available for kids on October 24th. Wait, did that happen? No, that's Saturday.
That's
so this
Saturday.
is this Saturday from 10 to 12 at the Pottstown YMCA, 724 North Adams Street. If you know a child that is in need of a coat for the winter, send them up there to the YMCA. Halloween craft show, October 31st. That's on a week from Saturday, Halloween. This is at the Alley from 10 to 3 is the Halloween and Fall craft show. So go check it out. Some of my favorite local crafters will be there. Our friend Pam Gormish at Blue Zen is having a little spooky night for the trick-or-treaters on October 31st, Halloween from 5 to 8. Blue Zen is at 28 South Charlotte Street. She's doing a haunted house. I know that Pam is very COVID cautious, and she will create a very spooky but safe environment for the kids for trick-or-treating. That is at Blue Zen on the 31st from 5 to 8.
Pam will be happy to know that we promoted her scary trick or treat
Yes.
on the cast at Glocker up in Boyertown.
Oh, great.
So we're trying to take the word
Good. Yes,
to Boyertown.
Ray, that is correct. There is no parade this year. Not safe for a parade. And then Tuesday, October 27th at 5:30. If you're not tuning into Porchcast, you can tune into the virtual town hall presented by Community Health and Dental. You can go to their website and register for that. It is Finding Family Balance. I know that folks are stressed out with the virtual learning and working from home and trying to find balance and all of that stuff. So if you are having trouble navigating through that stress, you can attend the virtual town hall through Community Health and Dental Care.
When's that day? What
What's
day
that?
is that?
That is Tuesday, October 27th at 5:30.
Okay.
So-
Well, here's
or
what you
come
can
to
do.
Porchcast and we
You
can
can-
help you relieve your stress.
That's true. Or you can go to the community health and dental thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that's done, you can just go back and watch the replay
Yes.
on YouTube or Facebook.
We are always here for your replay
There you go.
pleasure. And then I want to give a shout out to Barristers Bagels because I'm so excited that they're coming back to Pottstown. They just posted that they're moving. I don't have a date, but they are going to be moving into 250 High Street, which is the
Great
old
bagels.
Rivsters / Milkman, right across the street from Steel River, and super excited for them.
And really nice people.
Very nice people and delicious bagels.
And I'll say this, not as the legislator now, as the resident who grew up in New York. When my family comes from New York,
Yes.
they ask how to get a Barrister bagel.
Right?
From New York.
That's huge.
From
that
Long
is
Island.
an
From Long
endorsement.
Island?
The Long Islanders are saying they're getting bagels. I'm like, what do you mean
Bagels.
am I getting bagels?
That is an endorsement, like the
It's a
top.
great-
That's the top
great-
endorsement.
You
They're
need a
great run
good
business.
New York bagel
Exactly.
with your Philly cream cheese.
Yes.
There you go.
That's the perfect marriage.
Yeah,
Excellent. It's dark out there. We got to
together.
It's dark
Word
out there.
up.
Now, if
Can't
the
even see you
Yankees and the
guys.
Phillies could play like that, you know. Yeah, it's so funny. We're getting bagels. We're coming from New York. You want a bagel here in Pennsylvania?
Well, now they can get
That's
delicious.
You can.
street
Great
cred
bagels.
right there.
Yes.
That's right.
That's street cred.
Yes. Yeah, be very happy to see them come back to High Street and to fill an empty storefront. So that's a
That's wonderful.
win-win-win.
The more we fill, the better.
Exactly. All right, break it down, Matt.
All right, let's break it down. We are going to connect with Lou Rieger about what we learned from the Temple Small Business Development Center. It's the Fox Small Business Development Center. There's a long list of grant programs that are available right now for minority-owned, women-owned businesses or businesses that serve minority or low income areas. Lou, we're going to
Diverse
get you hooked up with
communities.
some of that information to see what you're eligible for down there at High Street Music. Thanks for tuning in. The beer was supplied by William Paul Broglie and Brooke Martin. Brooke Martin is the president of the Pottstown Rotary. We get a lot of support on Porchcast from Rotarians. The beer was Schuylkill India IPA from the pub, Pottstown United Brewing Company. They have provided beer to the set on multiple occasions.
Yes, they
Please
have. And they also
support your
have
local
cocktails
server.
To go also.
Tip well. Joe Ciresi has been our guest. He is the representative from the 146th District of Pennsylvania. Joe is running again for another term. Please support Joe, especially if you like what you heard him say today and you support his platform. Support him with your vote. Help him help you. I am Matt Green, Ecklocker Real Estate. I am your local real estate expert. Please call me when you need help buying and selling commercial and residential real estate.
Now you're in the spotlight.
Amy Wolf is the office manager at Wolf Baldwin and Associates, bringing you fine legal services in the borough of Pottstown since 1973. We are Porchcast. Let's talk soon.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Excellent.
You should have a squirrel.